Hello, and welcome to the latest episode of the Low Budget Review Show. I am your host, Eric Smith, and today I am talking about Kin by C.L. Enterline from Deep Reach Press. Look at that great cover from Chris Enterline. I'm just going to read the back cover copy here. One war ends, another begins. The Civil War has ended. The United States of America has been left with a wound at its core that will take decades to heal, if ever. The people of Harlan's Cradle have lost almost everything in the war's wake, and they struggle to rebuild their homes and their lives without their husbands, sons, and brothers. Something of nightmares sets to descend. So that was as they struggle. Something of nightmares sets to descend upon them, and it hungers. When a mysterious stranger arrives at her family's farmland, Susan Barnett, a recently widowed mother, finds herself fighting to survive in the middle of a battle that will forever change the lives of her and her son. Excuse me. That's the back cover copy. Excuse me, I'm terribly sorry about that. So, Kin by C.L. Enterline. A beautiful, beautiful cover. I'm going to admit, I was very nervous about reading this book. I had finished reading The Reaping, a Paperbacks from Hell from Valancourt Books. I had finished that and didn't know what I was in the mood for after that. So I posted on my Facebook. I don't know what I feel like reading next. And after one of my sisters said, read something with bunnies in it, which she always suggests. Chris Enterline came on and said, why don't you read my book? And I said, sure. Because I've owned it since it came out. I just hadn't read it yet. But I know Chris Enterline as a wonderful artist. Again, there's his cover. And I've seen lots of his art that he's posted online. And I think he's a fantastic artist. And he's fun to interact with on Facebook. He plays Marvel Zombies, a Zombicide game, which is a game that I have and enjoy. Love to play it with him sometime. He's got more of the stuff than I do. Right now, he's currently, I don't know if I should be telling everybody this, currently reading through basically all of Marvel Comics, starting from the beginning. He has Marvel Unlimited, I think it's called, the digital comic thing. And he'll post these longish sort of reports on what he's reading as he's going through all of the Spider-Man, Fantastic Four, the Avengers, Iron Man, Captain America, Hulk, all that stuff. Everything basically but X-Men, I think, because he said he has read that all recently, so he's not rereading it with all this other stuff. He's kind of reporting on it. I like to talk to him about some of that stuff. But I had no idea if the guy could write. And he says, hey, maybe try my book. I was like, okay. Now he knows I'm reading it, and I don't know how it's going to be. All of that is to say, for the too long, didn't watch folks, I gave Kin by C.L. Enterline 5 out of 5 stars. I was blown away by this book and how much I enjoyed it. We start with a cold open. Chapter 0 has a nice horror movie style cold open. We know there's something horrific in the world. Then we meet Susan Barnett, her son Philip, he's 10, her former slave, Mary. This is where things get really interesting. Because I find it interesting anyway that Enterline has chosen to make a widow in the South post Civil War his main character. Because now her husband went off to fight in the war. He was killed in the war. But they were slave owners. I actually brought this up at work. I said, what actually would constitute a slave owner? She's married to a guy who owns slaves. Is she a slave owner? And it might not even be that her husband owned them, but his father owned them. They had slaves on their farm. And she does say or it's expressed anyway, that she they were never treated badly. They're still slaves. Um, but she had no problem letting them go, as a matter of fact. And Mary wanted to stay to help raise Philip, help take care of the house. And Susan's trying to rebuild the fence around the farm. And Mary keeps saying, I can call, I think it's Sam, and some of the other boys to come and help you. And, Susan keeps saying, no, they're free now. They don't need to come and help me. I can't pay them. I don't have the money to pay them. They're free. They're living their lives. Let them be. So to me, it's interesting that Chris Enterline, C.L. Enterline, chose what is essentially a very complex character, because she's a good, strong woman. She's also a woman of the South that lived in a time when there was slavery and they had slaves on their farm. Brings up some philosophical issues. When we see her interacting with people of color, clearly she's she's not other people that we see interacting with people of color. I don't want to give anything away. But again, it's a complicated time with complicated characters. And so, right off the bat, I like that. The writing, smooth, straightforward. And after our introduction to Susan and her family and her world and the town, she lives on a farm quite a ways from town. She has to take the horse and buggy or the horse and wagon into town, and it takes some time to get there. And it's recovering from the war. The post office is burned down. We meet people that don't care that slavery has ended, which is a scene. There's a scene that I enjoyed very much. It takes place in town. And then eventually we're going to get to this stranger that shows up. He's someone who's wounded. Susan takes him in, and then the craziness happens. And once the shit hits the fan, it doesn't stop. It gets nuts. And I'm not going to go into details. I don't want to spoil anything, because we are on a ride. It is Fast and Furious. That'd be a good name for a movie. It is Fast and Furious and horrific. There's some crazy gore. It's not a splatterpunk novel or an extreme horror, but it is violent and gory. At least I wouldn't label it as splatterpunk or extreme. And this is going to be a bit of a spoiler. For people who know me, this will be a spoiler without me outright spoiling anything. Again, unless you really know me, this uses one of my favorite things in horror. Trying to be as vague as possible. The horror of this book is one of my favorite things. I didn't know that going in. I thought it was just very obviously one thing. Turns out it was something else that might be even better than the thing I thought it was. Definitely one of my favorite things in horror. So, all of this is to say, it's very well written, with very interesting and complex characters. One of the bad guys, and he definitely is a bad guy, but I liked him. I liked the character, and I had sympathy for the character. And I think that takes good writing. I'm very, very impressed. I think Chris Enterline, I wish he would write more. This book does. Is this a spoiler? I'm gonna say this. You can let me know down below if this is a spoiler. It does set up a potential sequel. It does set up a bigger world. And when I finished this, I immediately basically said to Chris Enterline, I wrote sequel in all capital letters with an exclamation point. Um, so, yeah, I don't know what else to say. It's fast paced, it's violent, it's got complex, well written, interesting characters. It's got interesting backstory. It's got a thing in horror that I love. And I gave it 5 out of 5. I didn't want to put it down. I only stopped reading. I finished it this morning. I only stopped reading last night because I was falling asleep. And I didn't want to miss anything. So I went to bed. As soon as I got up, had some cold pizza for breakfast, finished reading the book. Don't know. Well, I mean, I know why it took me so long to read it. I say so long, but the copyright's like 2022. But it's because I have so much other stuff to read. I'm so glad Mr. Enterline suggested that I read this. And I'm so upset that he doesn't have more stuff for me to read. But, that's my problem. So, Kin, CL Enterline, 5 out of 5 stars. Absolutely loved this book. So entertaining. Such great characters. And that's all I have to say about that, I suppose. I really need to learn how to end these things. Question for the video. Has there ever been a book you've been nervous about reading for whatever reason? Maybe you know the person who wrote it and you don't know if it's going to be any good, or it's an author that you like, but it's outside their normal wheelhouse, so you don't know if they're going to be able to pull off that Western when normally they write mysteries. Whatever. Don't know if that's the best examples. Maybe I should have gone like Westerns and sci-fi. Or because somebody just keeps telling you, you've got to read this, you're going to love it, you're going to love it, you're going to love it, and you don't think you're going to love it, but you're going to read it because so-and-so keeps telling you how great it is. I know this is a weird question, and maybe people won't have an answer, but, I mean, obviously, this I already explained. I was nervous about this. I mean, not really. I was going to read it, but, I didn't, I was hoping it was good so that I wouldn't have to say, "Hey, yeah, that was okay, Chris. That was okay. I liked some of that stuff. It was all right." Fortunately, I absolutely loved it. But what about you? Let me know in the comments below. If you have any comments, questions, or corrections, please put those in the comments below. Comments are open for spoilers. Just post spoiler warning. We try to be polite here at the Low Budget Review Show. Please like, share, and subscribe, all the usual YouTube stuff. And if you'd care to follow me on other social media, my Twitter is @Ronan5757. My Instagram, where I post pictures of books, comic books, board games, fuzzy animals, is Eric Smith5757. It's Eric with a K, ERIKSMITH5757. On Blue Sky, I am @EL Smith. That's all I have for you. This has been the Low Budget Review Show. I have been Eric Smith. And until next time, read more books.